This is a bucket list item for me. This is a place that is obscure in the Bible. It's just a little place. This is a tell. Tell is a mound. It's an artificial mound. You're looking at layers of civilization that erosion is built up on, and it's become this nice, smooth pile of dirt. But under there are layers of civilization, cities that have been built, destroyed, burned, built on top of destroyed and burned. And here at this site, Ziklag, is where David's men, David had their families during the time of the Philistines. This was their base. Here's the story of what happened. David had been attacked again and again and again by an Israelite king, King Saul, who was jealous of him. And the last time that God gave David an opportunity to kill Saul, knowing that it wasn't right to do it, and it was a test for David, and David did the right thing, that David snuck up on Saul in the middle of the night with some of his men. They took a spear, they took his water pot, and then in the morning everybody wakes up in Saul's camp, and David waves these things around and said, "Look, I had the opportunity to kill you." And Saul, of course, relents. I don't know if he repented, but he relented. "Oh, David, I'm so sorry. I tried to kill you all these times." And of course, David said, "I had the chance and I didn't do it. Just know that I'm doing the right thing." Well, David then runs off to a fellow named Achish. Achish is a Philistine king. The Philistines are the mortal enemies of the Israelites. But in this part of the world, here in Israel, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And because Saul wanted to kill David, that gave credibility to David, who was a great leader of a mercenary army as far as the Philistines were concerned. And they said, "We'll take you in." So David goes with Achish, and he stays in Gath with his 400 men and their families. But it's still a tense situation. They are Israelites, they're staying with the Philistines, and they typically don't like each other very much. And so there's a trust factor. So Achish gives David this city right here, this mound, which used to be all built up. And that's now his for his men and their families back in the day when. This is 3,000 years ago when this occurred. And so David's family and the men's families, they are here in this city, Ziklag, while David then goes with the Philistines up to a place called Aphek, which is up the coast, and it's about 100 miles or so from here by foot. That's a long way to go. The Philistines are now mobilizing to attack the Israelites, and they want to annihilate Saul. There's going to be a battle with Saul, and David, out of honor, has to beg the Philistines for him to be able to join them in the attack on Saul, knowing full well that they're not going to trust him. So David, in honor, has to beg the attack, and they say, "No, we won't do that." And while this is going on, and the Philistines are getting ready to attack Saul up in the Jezreel Valley, up by Mount Gilboa, where Saul eventually dies in this particular incident, that David hears news that Ziklag has been attacked by the Amalekites. And the Amalekites have taken their families, destroyed the city, and headed south in that direction towards Egypt. David, then with his men, flee, and they head south, and they come back here to Ziklag. They find the place evacuated and burned. All the people, they're gone. And so they realize it's an Amalekite attack, and David takes off towards Egypt and follows down the coast until he finally comes across an Amalekite who has been abandoned from the group because he was too sick. And he tells them this is what happened and gives them the whole story. David then sneaks up on the Amalekite camp because they've stopped, they've slowed down, they're going to sell the wives and children into slavery. And this is a terrible thing. And of course, David descends on the camp with his men and wipes them out, gets their families back. No one is harmed. It's a great miracle. And there's a lot more to the story than that, but it involves this place, Ziklag. Why is this important and why is the story important? Because up at Aphek, David was begging, "Let me go and attack Saul." Of course, they weren't going to let him. But what's most interesting is since Saul died in that battle, God was going to install David as king. This was a foregone conclusion. It was prophesied by Samuel. David was already anointed king, though Saul was still the king, so he wasn't able to be crowned yet. And in order to allow David, who was a very, very bloody man, to be able to go into his kingship with clean hands, God sent him as far away from Saul as he could by allowing this terrible incident that would draw David and his men, I don't think anything else would have moved them, away from that situation, down to Ziklag and then further all the way down towards Egypt in that direction. And then Saul is killed some 200 miles away. Now the whole world knows David had nothing to do with the death of Saul, and he could be installed as king with clean hands. Isn't God amazing that he would orchestrate something like that in order to put his king into the position as ruler of Israel and bring the country together finally, bring the tribes together? And he did it with clean hands, considering he was a very bloody man prior to this. That's the importance of this site, and that's the amazing miracle that surrounds it, how God would do that just to make sure that things worked out exactly according to his plans. Personally, I look at that and I go, I wouldn't have done it that way. But look at what God did and look at what he made of it. The greatest king of Israel, David. And it was because of this place that he was brought in with clean hands. Here we are at Ziklag. God bless you.